This is how I made my own version of Good Times by Juice WRLD and Kid Cudi. So when I first heard this audio, I was like, dang, this is actually kind of hard. And I was like, I could make something out of this. So this is just the sample by itself, the acapella. And I censored some parts because I don't like cuss words. And another thing, I also submitted this to my school, like for an assignment, so I couldn't have swear words in there. You could, but like, I got to be professional, so just take them out. I have an explicit version and a non-explicit version. I'm gonna play the non-explicit version just because. So this is the sample, just by itself.
I'll hop in the car with my friends and play my song. I hope the memories we make last all lifelong.
Pretty good so far.
I'll hop in the car with my friends and play my song. Ain't no telling where we'll end up. Last night was a blur, so girl, I wasn't sure if we made love or if we made something more.
You can already tell this is gonna be a fire. You could just hear a melody in your head. So that's what I did when I heard this thing. I was like, I could easily make something out of this. I already heard a beat in my head. I already heard the melody. I heard everything. So I know most people don't, but personally I did. So all those effects that you heard on the sample, they were already made in there by the producer who already made this acapella, whoever produced it, whoever. So all I really did is I just added an EQ. An EQ is just a range of frequencies from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. You can't see 20,000. I think it's behind that hertz symbol. But that's basically the human range. Humans can pick up hertz between 20 and 20K. Anything below or higher than that, you can't hear it. So what this does is it's basically either cutting or raising the volume of certain frequencies. So it goes from low to high. So as you can see, low, I cut all of the lows up to about 100. All this is just unnecessary rumble, which is just like, room ambience or just like anything that's unnecessary, you cut. That's basically what I do. And then about this area is the body of the vocal. I know I'm not exactly where it's not exactly where it is. There's usually graphs that tell you where exactly the body of the vocal is. Each vocalist is different and they have different ranges. So more of a female vocalist will have a higher frequency range. So their body is going to be around over here. But a male vocalist has more of a lower frequency in their voice. So they're going to have it in the lower frequencies. And the human ear is more sensitive around the sibilance frequency ranges between 2 to 10K, which is like the S's. Usually it's more sensitive is 5 to 10K. That's where your ear is more sensitive. That's where you get like the like all that stuff. Like that's why fire alarms work so well, is because they hit a certain frequency that really strikes a bone. You know what I mean? It really hits a nerve. So this area, I ducked it by about 1.5 dB, negative 1.5 dB. dB is just like the volume. So that's the frequency, 7,668 hertz. And this is the bell frequency band. So there's different versions. There's a flat high pass. So if you think about it, high pass means that it lets the high frequencies pass through, not the low frequencies. If I were to do a low pass, you can even see the graph here. It cuts everything to the right, which is the highs. So it lets the low frequencies pass. And this one cuts the lows, so it lets the highs pass. And there's different settings that you could set the band to. Flat, which is kind of just like a roll off, to where it's not as like it's not such a brick wall of like right when it hits this point, it ducks it completely. So you can kind of have it less sensitive. Resonant means right when you get to that certain point where you're cutting it, it boosts it just a little bit. Some of the mixes that I do, I don't find it very, very useful. The only ones I find useful are brick, wall, and flat. So that's what I usually use. This one I used a flat, but the slope is more hard. So you can have it less sensitive or more sensitive.
I'll hop in the car with my friends and play my song. I hope the memories we made.
So the S's, you can hear it. You can honestly, what's cool about this EQ is you can see how the vocal is like interacting with the EQ. Like you can see sound visually, which is so cool. I find that so fascinating. So if I were to take this off, bypass, which is just like it takes it off, it just turns it off basically. This is what it looks like.
I'll hop in a car with my friends and play my song. I hope the memories we make last all lifelong.
So if you hear him say S, that's where you get all the sibilants. How I think of it is sibilants, it already has the word in it. It has the meaning in the name. Sibilants. That means it's like very, very sensitive. It's very high pitched. So, and also consonants like P's and S's, this also kind of ducks it. Another plugin you can use to fix that is called a de-esser. So what that does is it basically, it tames those frequencies down so it's not very like, it doesn't cut through everything. I'm going to cut to an actual like vocal part instead of him just breathing into the microphone.
Ain't no telling where we'll end up.
So when he sustains a note, it actually is really cool because you could see it visually when he sustains a note. Juice WRLD when he sustains a note.
Where we'll end up. Last night was a blur. So
He goes, you can see it actually happening.
Last night was a
It's so cool. I'm sorry. It's really cool. And then this part is the body. So I can also solo these certain frequency bands. So I could only hear what this is affecting. Sounds like you're underwater, right? This is the main body. It sounds a little resonant, which means some parts are kind of cutting through more harshly. But that's just because I'm listening to this specific frequency. Although I'm not the best at mixing, but it works. It works for now. And I'm not listening to the whole thing in context. Once you listen to everything in context, you get a full picture. This is the sibilants, so you'll definitely hear it when I solo it. Sounds like you're listening to the song on like a $1 speaker, right? I just stuck to that because those frequencies are just unnecessary. You don't need those to be in the mix. Those aren't necessary. So I just took them out by about 1.5 dB. The reason I didn't duck it out completely is because it would lose the full volume of the vocal. Because each vocal has its own specific range. So the body is in this range, the sibilants is in this range, and the boxy kind of sound is in this frequency range from 1K to about 3K. If I were to just take out this part completely, it would sound super weird. So I make minor tweaks, except for this one I raise it up a lot, but this part I want the S's to still be heard, but I don't want them to just cut right through everything. So that's why I just ducked it just by a little bit. Enough to where it's not sensitive, but not too much to where you can't hear an S at all. Plus, it just sounds unnatural if you take out or add too much. So moving on from the vocals, we move on to the loop. So this is the loop. I chose about 3 loops. Well, not about 3. I chose 3 loops for this, and they're from Looperman, right? They're just electric guitar loops, to be honest with you. So I color coordinated them just to be a little bit more organized so I know which loop is which one because they kind of all look the same. This part is the main melody. So I did not make this. It's just a free loop I found on Looperman. Sounds pretty cool. And I also added some EQ and some reverb. Reverb is basically, it's like when you're in a huge grand hall and you yell, you can hear it still, not echo, but it just like, it slowly dies down. What that's doing is it's basically reverberating off all of the walls in the building. So like if you're in a parking structure, it's all metal and concrete, which doesn't absorb sound. It kind of just reflects it off of things. And certain materials absorb or reverberate sound. That's why foam pads are in studios, because those absorb sound and they don't let it reverberate everywhere. That's basically what reverb is. You can simulate as if you're playing it in like a grand hall or like a parking structure, somewhere with a lot of reflective walls. So that's basically what I did here. It just adds some more air to it. It just makes it sound more natural. So this is the reverb plugin I use. It's called Realm. I don't know how to pronounce it. Rome. I don't know. But I don't understand really what all this means. I just know that this is the reverb knob. Low cut, high cut, it's like an EQ. Feedback, that's more of delay. I don't know what that's really about. Diffusion is basically like how spread out you want the reverb to be. This is how big you want the reverb to be, I guess. Decay, that's just like how long you want the decay. That's how long you want the reverb to last. And then this is the wet dry knob mix. So basically what this is I want 18% of the sample to go through. If I put it at 100%, 100% of the sample is going to be affected by this plugin. So I don't want that. I just wanted just a little bit. And I also added an EQ, just a low cut. That's what I usually do for most things. Just a low cut, boost the body, and a little bit, because it's an electric guitar. You treat different instruments and different everything, really. They have their own respective EQ settings. So it all depends on the type of sample or type of instrument you're EQing. But most things, they have their own frequencies that they occupy. Right? You can hear that reverb. Ooh, that's cool. So basically this frequency band at 685 hertz, and it's bumped by about 2.7 dB. I never talked about the Q. Q is basically like how, adjust the width of the selected band. So like if I want it to affect a wider area of the frequency, it's going to be a lower number. But if I want the frequency to be more precise and more accurate, I put it to a higher number. You can make it really sensitive. It only affects like one frequency. So that's the body. That's like the main part of the melody. So I just boosted that up a little bit. This is the high. This is like the stringy part of the electric guitar sample. And it also has some lows in it, but I cut it, but this is what it sounds like without it. Just cuts it out. This is the second loop. Same thing, I just added some reverb and its EQs. Certain EQs look different than others for different instruments and different loops. And then you got the third loop. Now that we have the loop and the sample, let's see what they sound like together.
Ain't no telling where we'll end up. Last night was a blur, so girl, I wasn't sure if we made love or if we made something more. Last thing I remember is me walking out the door. Next thing you know, woke up on the floor. I don't know whose house this is, but I know I'm in Hollywood. Scramble for my keys, then I stumble to the car. I look in the backseat, what do I see? Bro passed out, laying next to a bad bride. Looks like they had a good time. I must have too, cause for some reason I can't remember my night. Reach in my pockets, what do I find? Half a $200 in a weed pie. That's when somebody hit my phone line, saying yesterday was wild, asking if I'm alright. I don't know what happened, but I wanna know. I guess we gotta do it all over again tonight.
So it sounds really beautiful. Basically, what I did is, now that you have the loop and the sample, you move on to the beat. So let's deconstruct the beat here. They're not labeled because I already know how my order goes. I usually go clap, hi-hat, open hat, another open hat, percussion. I usually go kick, or I usually go 808 kick, but in this case I just flipped them. And then I put my effects down at the bottom. Start from the top. Got the clap here, just on the third beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Watch, we'll play it by itself. With the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Pretty simple. Just a basic clap pattern. And then you got your hi-hats here. Basic two-step hi-hat pattern. You got your open hat here. Got your kick. Then you got your 808. 808 is just a bass line. And as you'll notice, the 808s are also color coordinated. So the reason I did that is you'll also see the loops are also color coordinated. So what I did is, since every loop is different, they have their own patterns, they have their own melodies, they have their own bass lines. So what I did is I cut the lows of each sample just to make room for the bass, because that's the bass. That's where the bass goes. So I just cut the lows on the sample so to make room for my bass. This orange one goes with this melody. See, and then I switched up the 808 pattern. Just the tuning of it. The beat still hits the exact same way, it's just tuned differently. And then for the green one, for this loop. So now we're just going to play the whole beat itself, just the beat. Then we got the loop with the beat. Okay, then we got the whole thing.
Ain't no telling where we'll end up. Last night was a blur, so girl, I wasn't sure if we made love or if we made something more. Last thing I remember is me walking out the door. Next thing you know, woke up on the floor. I don't know whose house this is, but I know I'm in Hollywood. Scramble for my keys, then I stumble to the car. I look in the backseat, wonder what I see. Bro passed out, laying next to a bad bride. Looks like they had a good time. I must have too, cause for some reason I can't remember my night. Reach in my pockets, what do I find? Half a $200 in a weed pie. That's when somebody hit my phone line, saying yesterday was wild, asking if I'm alright.
That's basically it for this whole video. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is just me showing how I make my music. I have a passion for it. I just want to show other people how I think and how I make my music. Thanks for watching.